Hi, happy Monday night. How are you?
Hello, it's Pam Day. Happy Monday night. I'm doing good. How are you, Pam?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm through Monday and now it's
Yep.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to go.
Yep. That's always a good thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And that
Yep.
spring has sprung and I have my beautiful peonies
Are
that
those
make
from
me
your
so
yard?
happy.
Oh, dear listener, if you are watching this, well, if you're listening to this, then you can't see
Yeah.
these beautiful peonies, but I'm going to describe them. So they're yellow and like a blush pink, and are there white ones too?
Yeah,
They're
there's
like full bloom, gorgeous. Wow. I don't have anything like that. That's
they
amazing. They're beautiful.
they bring me so much joy
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they smell pretty and remember we learned about them from England. They used to grow them in the I don't remember what they called them back there, but they had fields of them and then people would sell them on the side of the road. I don't know if you remember that at
That's
all.
right. They did. Yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah, yeah. I do remember that. If
yeah,
you
the
want to see
upside to
what
them is that
Pam's
they're
peonies look like, you have to come over and join us on YouTube. We only have a few
yes.
subscribers right now. We would love to have you over there. Come join us on YouTube. Check out
Yeah.
Pam's peonies, and then maybe you're going to want to plant some for yourself.
Oopsie.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Am I gone?
You're here. I see you.
Okay.
You know what? And I got to back things up because we had some technical difficult. I had technical difficulties getting on today. Pam had technical difficulties. It's
Yeah.
one of those days. So just, bear with us. We're going to just feel it out. It's all going to
Yeah.
work out. It's all good. But you're still here. Yes, we're good.
Yes, yes.
We're
I think
rolling.
I clicked something and everything went away.
Oh,
But
okay. No, I've got you.
yeah, yeah. So the topic today, it came to me, first of all, happy belated Mother's Day.
Happy belated Mother's Day to you too.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend and crazy enough, I was so tired and I just was like Sophie had book club at the house, which is so
Nice.
adorable and sweet, but she just needed to, do you remember how it was when we were in book club? I don't think our book club was like this, but some book clubs are like that, you know what? My very first one was like it. One person had to outdo the other.
Oh boy.
And Sophie and my future daughter-in-law and a few other little girls are in book club together. And it was Sophie's turn, and she just wanted it to be perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
so the kitchen was full of just bowls of things that she was baking. And, she had, in the meantime, she had tests that she was studying for, and she hadn't finished the book. And she was doing all the things that I think are just adorable and lovely, but
Yeah.
the mess was mine to clean up. And I guess that's all part of being a mother. I guess that's all part of being a mother. And then Samuel
Right.
was home and he had a couple friends over and it just was so chaotic, which I normally love. But for some reason, I was exhausted and tired. And I'm normally tired on a Thursday evening and I need Friday to unwind. But
Yeah.
this was like an over the top fatigue.
Right, right.
And I just, like I said to myself, what is wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? I just don't get it. I'm taking my
Huh.
vitamins and, the weather's perking up and there's all these
Yeah.
cool things going on. So yeah, it was just a frustrating thing. And then, what about you though? How was your
So
Mother's
no
Day?
Mother's Day yet. And this happens year after year after year with us because there's always soccer on Mother's Day,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time Bill is out of town on Mother's Day. So we just pick a day and we call it Mother's Day, and it's not when everybody else celebrates. So truth be told, we haven't done Mother's Day yet,
I
but I
think you did tell me
know
that.
I know when we do, it's
Yeah.
going to be amazing because Bill knows that my love language is acts of service.
Yeah.
And so when Mother's Day rolls around, there's all kinds of acts of service. In fact, my kids have said, when are we doing Mother's Day? Because I have something special and I want to give it to you. Can I give it to you now? And I'm very like purist about it and I don't want it early. So I don't know. They haven't even told me when the day is going to be yet, but everybody's so busy in our house that we haven't planned it. And Bill's been traveling, so we just haven't planned it yet. But it will be fantastic. And I promise I will tell you guys about it when we have Mother's Day because it is always amazing. I have them trained.
I was gonna say
It did
you have
not,
a
it wasn't always like that, but it
yeah.
is now just because they know how, motherhood is a thankless job. And I would like one day, just one day of the year to have a big old thank you, mom. And so they know that about me. They know that I need that. Maybe that's selfish of me or
No,
weak or something,
no,
but I need it. I'm just
no.
going to be honest. I always like to be honest and vulnerable here.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
need that.
yeah.
And they know it. And so they give me a fantastic Mother's Day. So I'll let you know when we have
Mhm.
it.
I think with boys and men, we just have to program things into them, and it sounds like you've programmed that in.
Yep, I did. It took a while, but it's programmed. It's in there now. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm
What
happy to
else are we
hear
talking
that.
about today?
Well, so it's interesting because I like to talk to you about trending topics.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And one of the things that I think has been trending lately, as we get from the weather change, the bad winter to the weather changing, and you have beautiful weather, and some people are still not feeling well. And, a lot of us want to take the easy answer, myself especially, and say, okay, I'm this way because it's winter and I'm not getting out and I'm not exercising and I've got the blahs and I've got the blues and blah, 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 blah. And then the weather starts changing, and many of us still like are feeling under the weather for some reason or another. We don't know why. So I hear a lot of discussions, amongst some of the girls at work. And then my husband says that he sees women all the time who come to him and they're seeking answers about what's going on, and they're wanting to rule out allergies and maybe immunological problems. And he says they rule that out, and he hears their stories and what's going on, and they're frustrated. And I can remember the journey I went through, up to trying to figure out what was wrong with what was happening to
Yeah.
me before my chronic disease was diagnosed. And I know that I wasn't alone. I know that there are many women out there who just like we take these journeys of trying to figure things out. And so I wrote down one morning just a list of variables because I'm always trying to think, okay, what the heck is going on? This is good. This is good. This is good. But there's a lot of things I can't control. There's a lot of things that other women can't control. The other day our group was talking on a group text about hormones and menopause,
Great
and
conversation.
it was very good. And then I know what you do for people. You help so many people who are already diagnosed with something. They took the
Right.
journey to figure out what was wrong with them. It worked out. It was very definitive in most cases, I think. And now
But
there's
do have to say that when they see me, we reminisce about how long it took them to get that diagnosis. So they had that period too. And with digestive disorders, it's usually a very long period, like years, where
okay.
they're trying to figure it out. So they have a diagnosis when they come to me, but trust me, they've had that time as well, for sure.
Yes, and I don't doubt that at all because GI issues is one of the things on my list that
Okay.
I what I thought would be kind of fun is to break down each of the variables that I listed, and I don't have them in any particular order. So I don't know that it's necessarily like, don't think of it as what I bring up first as being um, the most severe or the easiest to figure
Right.
out,
It's not
that's
in a linear order. It's just
right,
whatever came to you.
right. I
Okay, got
mean,
you.
if anything, when I picture the things that I have written down, I actually picture a huge Venn diagram on the wall because I mean, in psychology they call overlapping characteristics comorbidity.
Right.
I know in this case it's not the same. It's just there's overlapping, I don't even want to say characteristics. There's just overlapping solutions maybe.
Okay.
And I kind of want like women like you and me to have this to use this wonderful community that you and I have right now that we've created. And I want other women out there to know they're not alone in trying to figure out what the heck is wrong.
Yes.
When I was younger, or sorry, not when I was younger, before I was diagnosed with the myelopathy, the journey I took was probably the most frustrating thing I've ever dealt with in my life for not only me, but for my husband
Yeah.
as well. As an immunologist, he thought I had maybe an autoimmune problem. And that was like looking
Right.
for a needle in a haystack. And then, but
You went through
before that,
so much. Yeah.
yeah. And before that, he called it hormones. We just blamed everything on hormones
Right. Right. The
and
catch-all. Well, if we
viruses.
can't figure out what it is, it must be
Yeah.
hormones.
It's hormones and it's
Right?
viruses.
There
And
was
so
MS was thrown in there too.
MS was
I
thrown in
mean,
there. And
yeah, yeah.
but that like the chronic condition thing is a whole other variable. Like for me, before people even got to my husband, a physician, my own physician, you as a therapist, a counselor, the journey that we women have to take to even get to that point is
Oh, yeah.
absolutely infuriating. And you hear
Yeah.
this time and time again. You even had your own story that you told about your
I have that
frustrations with
same thing. I mean, it took
exactly.
me 3 years to get a diagnosis.
And
I
you had
mean,
some
at
very
this point,
severe
it
things happening
sounds
to you.
short, but can you imagine 3 years to get a diagnosis? And
Did
that's
you
very common with digestive disorders.
and
So
did you land in the ER to get that, or how did that end up
I
happening?
landed in the hospital, not the
Hmm.
ER, but I was in
Hmm.
the hospital for a planned procedure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's how I was found.
And
But
it had to get
but
so bad.
I'm like you, like all the different things, like it was like, oh, you have something called esophagitis, which is just inflammation of the esophagus. Oh, no, you don't have that. You have endometriosis. Oh, no, sorry, you don't have that. It was like
Hmm.
thing after thing after thing.
Hmm.
And then 3 years later, I finally got a diagnosis. And so I don't think it matters how old you are, because for me, we're talking way back when I'm 14,
Hmm.
right? And for you, this is all happening in your 50s.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter the age you are. I
Hmm.
think that this happens time and time again. And I really want to focus on the women here because I think it happens more often with women than it happens with men
It
for
does.
a couple reasons. And
Yeah.
you might already going to go there, but I mean, first of all, men are just believed more. Like if they say, I have this, right?
Hmm.
The doctor just believes them. Where women, it's like almost like we have to convince our doctor that we're not hysterical and it's not anxiety and maybe it's not hormones. It's like we have to convince them of our symptoms, which is so ridiculous. And then the other thing with men is that I think oftentimes they don't go to the doctor. So that's the other thing, that they don't have to go through this because they don't, either the doctor believes them right away or they just don't go to the
Hmm.
doctor. So I feel like this is a much greater problem for women than it
Yeah,
is for men.
it is. And I know for me, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't. You're right. There was one doctor that I don't feel believed me, and it actually was a woman. And she was just completely barking up the wrong. When I think about this, I feel like I need to go to therapy for it. The frustrations between, and I know I'm not alone because I have had this conversation with a few of my friends. I have one friend who was finally diagnosed with an autoimmune. He went ahead and he gave her lupus as a diagnosis. And he said, listen, it's not that your blood work came back definitively that way. You had positive results, you had negative results, but let's just give you something because there's something wrong, there's something not right, and let's get you fixed. And for her, it was life changing.
Hmm.
I wasn't that lucky. I had to end up in the ER with a very severe something or other to get to the point where I finally got a diagnosis. And this is being married to a doctor and having my own doctor, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with me, even
Yeah, yeah.
even though it was
I mean,
something that was
you
in
have to
hindsight.
just say that again, or we have to reiterate that. You're married to a doctor, and
Yeah.
this was still difficult for you. So it really doesn't matter, even if you have access to the best medical care in your home, you can still go through this. And just be clueless for a long time about what's going on.
Well, and I think it's because with women, we just, like I said, I wrote down at least 15 variables that I say to myself, okay, if I were to go through and list these variables every day and put some kind of scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being horrible, you really could take the time as a woman and spend some time on it every morning to kind of like figure, like if you wanted to use some self, you
Yeah.
know, awareness or whatever. But what it ends up doing to you is make you feel even more crazy because you're just like, what the heck,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yes. You
So,
you feel like maybe there isn't anything wrong with me. Maybe this is all in my head.
that's what a lot of women feel. I think a lot of women wonder what's wrong with them and it's in their head.
Yep.
My husband said he'll listen to women talk and they've ruled out allergies and he says they end up talking about their life situation and things happening and he says he feels like sometimes they just need to vent to somebody
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't think that's the quick and easy answer but it certainly is a component in it and sure enough stress and life situations are two of the things on my list. I don't know if we should just like go through one at a time. Like, what
Okay.
about if I tell you, like, I'll go through my list and we'll just kind of talk about it a little bit and how it affects you, how it affects me, how we think our listeners might be affected by
Okay.
it. What do you think about
Okay.
that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
getting my pen and paper. I'm going to write them
Okay.
down. Okay.
Yeah. And this could end up being, several episodes because I do think some of them are really going to be deep and heavy.
Okay. Okay.
So the first three I wrote down, and I wrote down first of all weather, stress, and hormones. Okay,
Okay.
and the reason I wrote those down first is because those are the three things that I think I hear most women discuss because
Hmm.
they're pretty easy for the most part. It's pretty easy to control our stress. If we know we're stressed out about something, well, I don't know. Let me hear from you. What do you think? What does stress mean to you, and what do you think about it? And how often do you hear people discuss it in your talks with other women?
All the freaking time. And I don't know if I agree with you that if you have it, you know it, you can do something about it. Because
Okay. With stress.
the way that I see it and the way that I talk to my clients about it is that everybody, especially women, right, we're very in tune. We know we have stress, but
Yeah.
what I think women a lot of times do, especially moms, is we make the mistake of thinking that we need to get rid of the stress. And instead of approaching it that way, I approach it as you're going to have stress. I mean, especially with the people I deal with, you're a mom and you have a chronic illness. So
Mhm.
you're, of course, you're going to have stress, and everybody has something, whether it's a chronic illness or a
Mhm.
dysfunctional relationship or problems with finances or kids or whatever it is. Everybody that's a mom has reason to have stress. And so instead of saying, you know that you have it and let's figure out how to get rid of it, I say no. Like make friends with it. Like bring that stress in and let's actually work through it instead of trying to get rid of it because you're going to have it. It's about having the coping mechanisms and the tools in place,
Mhm.
the ones that work for you because there's so many out there, but it's about knowing which ones work for you. And I always break stress up into acute stress and then the chronic stress. So acute stress is like, I think I'm being followed and I need to deal with this right now. And oh no, I'm not being followed. And then the stress goes away, right? Where chronic stress is like something that's long term, like maybe weeks or months or years, like maybe it's your finances, or maybe you have a sick child, or maybe you're sick, or whatever, relationship stress, whatever. That like that long term stress that will then affect your cortisol levels and your adrenal. And so I like to separate them and then talk about what are the techniques that we can use to deal with the acute stress, like what are the best techniques for that, and then when we talk about chronic stress, what should you be doing about that. But it's never about trying to get rid of it because you are just going to have it, you're going to have it. It's about figuring out, well, how do I actually live with this, how do I move beyond it? And in my opinion, the only way to do that is to walk through it. You can't get around it, you can't get rid of it, you have to walk through it. So that's how I see stress.
I love that, and I I think that's such a great way to put it because it's impossible to alleviate it. You're absolutely right. We have it. We're better off using our tools to try to figure it out. And the one thing about stress is like when you talk about it to your clients, for the chronic illnesses of the GI system, the things you say to them is definitely an across the board universal thing that could be said to any person with any chronic disease,
Absolutely. Fits for
or not even a
everybody.
person with chronic disease. It could just be somebody who's, they're getting more headaches than usual, but they're
Yep.
generally a pretty healthy person. So
Yeah. So
I
many
love that.
stressors that come at us, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Right.
just, yeah, so many.
And so then I would say weather is probably a lot. People in Pittsburgh have perked up a lot this past couple weeks. Everybody's smiling and happier and chatting with each other a little bit more. We're spending more time outside. We're getting more exercise. I can't help it. And you and I have talked about this many times. I can't help it but admit that I don't have control over how weather makes me feel.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have talked about this before with what you can do with, dysthymia and things like that.
Yeah.
And then some people who go to the gym, like good for them. If they have a gym membership in the winter, or they like a sport or they like to go into the city and do things, that's great because you're the
Or
kind of
even,
person
go
who's
ahead.
going to
Sorry. Go
stay
ahead.
active,
Yeah, exactly.
you're even if it's winter. So I do believe there are a lot of people that do fine in winter because they're fine with just being outdoors and going and doing things, but then
Right.
there's a
Even though the
lot of
weather's
us.
crappy, they just go out and do it. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and then there's a lot, probably a majority of us who just, we become hermits and homebodies and we watch more TV than usual and we eat more snacks than usual. And we
We
know that
hibernate.
we hibernate and we want to, and it's cozy and it's wonderful, but it's also not as good for us as those people who are getting outside in the winter. And I used to joke with a friend of mine that, okay, this winter we're going to go walking in Home Depot or Walmart almost every night after work. We're going to do it. We're going to stick to it. And it never feels good. And I know there's a lot of people who agree with me that they just need to get through winter and they put a few
Hmm.
pounds on and then they're like, okay, spring comes, I'm gonna work on it again. So
Yeah.
what about you? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with you. The only thing that I would add is that for the most part, I'm okay with it. Like so much of all of this, like you talked about stress, and now we're talking about weather. So much of this to me is about your perception of it. And I could fight the fact that I have seasonal affective disorder every winter, or I could go with it because in the winter, it feels really good for me to have lots of warm, soothing teas. And it feels really good for me to have soup. And it feels
Yeah.
really good for me to watch too much TV and cozy up with a blanket and just hibernate.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, do I feel a little bit down during those times? Yeah, I definitely have periods where I do get like that. I definitely have seasonal affective disorder, but I lean into it because I
Hmm.
know this is my time to do that
Hmm.
instead of saying, "What's wrong with me? I got to get out of this funk and I'm less than because I have it or I'm a loser, or I'm worthless." Instead of getting really
Yeah.
self-sabotaging about it.
Hmm.
And this took me years to come to this place, but I finally did where I just embrace it. And I get really excited. And we have dogs. We have to take them for walks. And Bill really does most of it in the winter. And once the weather gets sunny, I am like, I'm with you, friend. I am there every
Yeah.
day. But
Yeah.
I can't do that in the winter. And I'm just okay with that. So that's how I deal with it, is just being like, this is my time to do this. It's like a
Hmm.
season in life,
Hmm.
right? Winter is a
Yeah.
season in my life that I hibernate, and I'm okay with that. I don't know. What do you think? Is that wrong of me? Should I not
I
be okay with
no,
that?
I think that
I
is
don't
an
know.
absolutely wonderful way to handle it.
Okay.
And I 100% agree with you. This winter, I think this podcast was fun because it gave us something to do. We could wallow a little bit with each
Yeah.
other. I had some projects I was working on, redoing a table,
Yeah.
sanding it and staining it. And I picked up a television show that I just became addicted to. And I said the same exact thing you said, Karen. I'm like, I'm okay with this. This is
You
going to
too?
get me
Yeah.
through
Right.
winter.
Right.
It's okay. And so it brings me to my next topic, or my next variable, I would say, which is diet. Um, People, okay, so just backing up a little bit, if we spend so much time beating ourselves up over things like, oh, I need to get out more, even though it's winter. Oh, I should be walking at Walmart. I should be joining the gym. I should be doing this. That's just as bad as just, or that's
Right.
worse than just embracing it.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about diet or lifestyle choices having to do with foods, for example.
Hmm.
We all could go on the internet and read or the YouTube and listen to 50 different professionals talk about which foods, the
Right.
Mediterranean, the caveman, the Atkins, just the FODMAP, just go on and on and on. Weight Watchers. We all could just go like, my head spins when I
Yeah.
try to like focus. Okay, now I'm going to eat more protein and less carbs. I'm going to my fat in my
Yeah.
belly. The what's that called? The fat in our belly. The visceral fat is going to go away if I do this. It's nutso. But what I do realize is even worse than me trying to figure out what's right for me in the GI department is when I do cheat, I beat myself up about it. Well, no, I don't do that anymore. I used to beat myself up about it. And I
Yeah.
see that happen with women all the time. I hear the girls at work that eat one too many donuts. And not only are they mad at themselves for eating donuts, but they're perseverating about it. And it's causing all this stress. And then I feel crappy. Like, okay, yeah, they have a stomach ache later, but maybe the stomach ache is because they actually like are beating themselves up about it. Now, granted,
Right.
is it
Instead of the
good?
food.
What's that?
Instead of the food, right?
And
Because they
we all
beat
know it's
themselves up.
not great to eat two donuts in a sitting, but every once in a blue moon, it's going to be okay.
Right.
You're hurting yourself more by like punishing yourself for it. I truly believe that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, I love that you said that. I want to just say something really quickly about you saying when you were talking about the weather and really all the topics that you're bringing up, and you're talking about how you used to feel this way about it, now you feel this way. I think this is really poignant to say that it comes with age. So, because we're a podcast for women over 50, I think it's important to say as you get older, those thoughts and feelings that you used to have, there's something liberating about letting that go. So, I think that all of these things that I maybe used to stress about or think about and worry about or beat myself up or self-sabotage about, that I just don't do anymore, because with age comes clarity and wisdom and just no, like you just don't have time for things like that. And it's not that you don't actually have the time, it's that you just decide in my brain, I don't have this capacity or space for things like that. I'm just not going to let that in. So I think this all gets better with age. But my thoughts about food, this is really interesting. So I have to, of course, relate this to the way that I see food. And I always see food through the lens of somebody with gut issues, because that's been my life.
Yeah.
So way I've been working with in the digestive disease space since 2008. So it's a long time.
Yeah.
And when I first started, there was this diet that really helped me heal from Crohn's disease. And I said, well, this is so amazing. I have to share this with everybody. And I did. And within the first couple of years, I realized that, you know what, this is interesting, because this diet that changed my whole life, my world, gave me my life back, it actually doesn't work for everybody. Huh, like what's going on here? Why did that happen? And
Yeah.
over the years, I realized that it isn't just about this diet, it works for these symptoms. We have to marry your diet with your, not just your symptoms, but your lifestyle. Right? Like what do you want to do? What can you do? What's too restrictive for you? That's different for everybody. And not only that, your lifestyle, but your personality as well. Right? Like, are you the kind of person that is going to do a restrictive diet and be okay with it? Or do you need like somebody who has less boundaries around you? And so over the years, I started really tweaking things and saying, you know what? There is no one size fits all diet. This diet that works for me, it's not the diet that works for everybody. And I would extrapolate to what you're talking about to everybody and say, a lot of people talk about the Mediterranean diet or the blue zone or diet or whatever. You have to find what works best for you. There is no perfect way to eat. It's the best way to eat for you. And that's not just about how you feel. It's about so much more than that. It's about your lifestyle. It's about your personality. It's about what you have time for. It's about, do you like to cook? Do you enjoy making food at home? Like, do you eat out more? You have to figure all of those variables out when you figure out what is best for you to eat. And that's me on my soapbox 100%. But I will stand in that place forever now, forever to come,
Mhm.
because I just realized that there is no one size fits all eating plan. You know what I mean?
There's not, but the other thought that came to my mind when you said that is, what if everybody in the world started the low FODMAP diet? Okay. Even if all of us started the low FODMAP diet or the Atkins or whatever it is, and it was wonderful for us in a GI way, because we all know that a low inflammatory diet is 99% of the people are going to do great with it, right?
Right.
So there really are some fantastic foods that we can choose versus horrible foods that we can choose. But let's just say for a minute that like everybody would do well on like two diets.
Right.
Then there's all these other variables that, you could be doing so well, Karyn, with your diet. You've conquered, your Crohn's for a couple of years, but then something else starts happening to you and you're like, what the heck? And what do you do right away? You blame your diet for some reason,
It
but it
must be my
isn't
diet.
necessarily your diet. It
That's
could be
right.
just the other factors. And I think, again, with women, we just have so many different factors and variables that play into what the heck can be going on with us sometimes. And
Yeah.
that is what drives me crazy because I'm such an overthinker. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Oh yeah, it could be any of these things that you're talking about. And we think, "Oh, it must be my diet," but could it be the weather? Like, is it the middle of winter? Are you in a period of stress in your life? What's going on with your hormones, right? We,
Yeah.
especially as we age, we need to think about these things. They
Yeah.
really become a factor. And so it could be any of these things that you're talking about. We can't just like hone in on one thing and think it's that. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
like
lot to have to think about.
it's like a multimodal situation. And you don't know, even if you're taking your vitamins and you're taking your vitamin C and you're taking your vitamins and you're doing great on your diet, you could go to the grocery store and there's a virus you picked up on a grocery cart. And
Right.
then you're like, oh man, why do I feel this way today? Oh, I feel like I've been doing so great with my exercise. I've been doing great with this. My stress is low. Why do I feel like crap still? So you just, it's difficult. It's really difficult to try to figure out sometimes why we feel the way we do. And we probably spend a lot of time beating ourselves up about it, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, for
which
sure.
is huge.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we got through like kind of quickly and briefly weather, stress, and hormones. The next thing I wanted to talk about, which is I think maybe you with your diet, the diet and the GI, I think that's such a huge, huge topic. And one of the things I think that comes, I've always seen about you is you have a very good self-esteem because of what you've conquered and what
Hmm.
you've taken on this like horrible chronic disease and everything you've been through, and you've turned it into something that helps other people. And I think in turn, Karyn, that's really helped you. I mean, I never knew you to have poor self-esteem. Maybe you did at some point in your life, but I see that self-esteem can also play a role in a variable in how we women can feel on a day-to-day basis.
Of
And
course, that makes
like
sense.
like that's your thing. Like you have this thing, right, that helps other women and you've helped yourself. And just let's talk a little bit about what your take is on self-esteem and women and
Wow.
things like that.
That is interesting. I don't really think of, I just don't think of self-esteem. And so the fact that I don't think about it must mean that I have pretty good self-esteem. I'm guessing because I've never thought about whether I do or not. But let's
Okay.
be real here. I mean, me helping people is helping me. It's, you know what I mean? It's not
Okay.
completely altruistic
Yeah.
because I feel it's like when you're in any service profession,
Hmm.
you're getting something out of that too. Like service-based people, whether it's volunteer work or you get paid to do it, whatever it is, you're getting something out of that too. So it feeds the mothering type of spirit in me. It feeds the nurturer in me. It feeds my wanting so badly to not have anybody go through the hell that I've gone through. And so I do derive a lot of self-esteem and self-worth from doing that. It is a large part of me. But I feel like if I didn't have that, if I struggled with who I am, like I know who I am at my core, but if I struggled
Yeah.
with that, if I felt less than, if I felt that um shame about anything, that would absolutely impact my health. 100%, 100,000 million
Yes,
percent. I don't know,
exactly.
how does that show up for you? Does that show up for you, or are you very secure in who you are?
Um, I think that my self-esteem has always been poor up until maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years
Okay.
ago. And I mean, I don't know if it's because I didn't feel well or if it was because I didn't. This is like a psychotherapy session, perhaps for just like a
Right.
whole other
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
a
yeah,
whole
yeah.
other day.
This could
But
be a
long
whole
story,
episode and then some. Yeah.
but I think long story short is something clicked in me this year. It probably has a lot to do with what you're saying about us getting older and letting go of some things. But also, I set some goals for myself a couple years ago,
Okay.
and I'm very goal oriented in a self-help kind of way. And I think the very first goal I had set for myself was when I did, when I didn't know what the heck was wrong with me, I gave up. I went on the low FOD map, and part of the low FOD map was giving up gluten. And I was so strict with that diet to the point where it was I think it was helping me because I don't know, it was weird. Like I was feeling better, but then it was also frustrating because nobody really understood why I was doing it, especially my family. But
Mm.
yet I was gaining all this, like, look at them. They're making homemade butter croissants in front of my face, and I'm able to like not
Yeah.
eat them and not crave them. Or I'd go to restaurants and then people would be eating things and I'd start feeling better that I didn't cave in. And then I like stuck to, okay, well, this is a natural consequence for me. I'm going to feel better. So I'm not going to do this. And so I started feeling like, oh, I actually have some type of control, self control. And then they're just like every single few months, I set a new goal for myself. And I think that has helped me do better with my self-esteem. But the bigger part is that I've decreased stress. I don't have as many, I don't have 4 children that I'm worried about every single
Yeah.
minute of the
That's a
day.
huge
There's
difference. Yeah.
just so many variables, but I talk to women all the time. You do too, Karen. Self-esteem is really tricky because you could be talking to the most beautiful, outgoing, seem to be happy-go-lucky person. And deep down inside, that woman could be suffering with something
Yeah.
about herself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
And
we all
so,
have those things, right? I mean, most, I don't say, I shouldn't say all, but I would say 99.9% of women have something that you feel like you'd like to change about yourself, right? Whether it's personality or it's physical. I mean, whatever, we all know, all of us nitpick at ourselves, right? So
I think so.
it's always a little bit of an issue, probably for everybody.
I think it is. I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely a spectrum.
Sure.
I look at somebody, like you were a dancer growing up. I think that is the type of thing that when a parent puts their daughter into dance, I think that has to be something that's really worth, it's a great thing for little girls to get into and little boys and whatever. Like just so everybody has like something. Like you want your kids to
Yeah,
have
it could be a
something they're good
sport,
at,
something
right?
could be theater, it could
Right.
be singing. I mean, something creative, I think is great,
Hmm.
but like just anything, you want them a part of something because yes, it builds self-esteem, it builds
Yeah.
character. And I love sports in that way. I love dancing in that way, even theater in that way, all of those kinds of activities. And I'll tell you why. Because this culture where everybody wins is an absolute fallacy. And we are only doing our children a disservice
Yes.
when we say everybody's a winner. You get the participation prize, right? You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
There are winners and losers in life. And so when you put your kid in a sport, they're going to play games and they're going to win and they're going to lose sometimes.
Yeah.
This builds character. This builds
Right.
self-esteem. When you're in a dance competition, my mom used to say, Karen, when I would lose, I would be upset. And she would say, if the same person wins every time, we'd all just need to stay home. Why would you go? It's not, you have to just be
Yeah.
okay with those things. If you're
Yeah.
trying out for a play, you don't get the lead or whatever, you have to deal with disappointment. These things build self-esteem, they build your character, and they help you be a better person. So I think that it really went overboard when we went to the everybody's a winner type of thing in
Mhm.
schools. I feel like we're coming back from that, but I don't think that was helpful to anybody.
I agree. I agree. And I think if we like take self-esteem and this could segue to the next variable. And I don't
Okay.
know that we should do all of these today because I feel like some of them deserve more time than what we have in this 45-minute period that we're talking.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that self-esteem could segue to exercise, diet, things like that. And if there's a woman who is suffering right now with how she feels she looks, we all know that, exercising more and improving a diet can truly, be like a jump start on making us feel better about ourselves, weight loss, things like
Absolutely.
that. So, but it's a
Absolutely.
struggle. Again, it's like women, I am here with, friends. I am with you in the struggles of trying to feel good, fit into the pants we want to wear, having our hair gray a little bit less than quickly than we like to. I mean, we get it. I get how difficult it is to sometimes look at ourselves in the mirror and just
Oh my gosh, I
feel
was just thinking
attractive.
that same thing. I was just thinking
Yeah.
that. Like, I was thinking about our skincare episode from a few
Yeah.
episodes ago. And just, as you get older, that face that you see in the mirror, it's
Yeah.
not the same face that you used
I
to
know.
see. And you start
Yeah.
seeing, oh, look at, right? You start just like being like hypercritical instead of
Yes.
saying, like, hey, that age spot, that wrinkle, that line. That's
Yeah.
all the wisdom that I have, the life experience. But it's hard as you see yourself changing. It is, isn't it?
I think some of us are so hard on ourselves too. And I think I told you in that episode, Karen, I don't know if you remember, I have never looked at pictures. I've never liked my picture being taken. I really admire people
Me too.
who love getting their pictures taken and the selfie era and things like that. I'm the kind of person that whenever I look at a picture of myself, I'm criticizing it. Oh, take it. I mean, I remember I cut up pictures of myself when I was in fourth grade and I like had none. I hated how I looked all the time.
Yeah.
And I did that my entire life. And now I'm 56 years old and I do look back at pictures of myself and I'm like, darn it, you were too hard on
Yeah.
yourself. Stop it?
Yes, yes. And if
So,
we do it now, when we're 80, we'll say, why did we do it when we were 50 something?
oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, we just, yeah, that's something that I definitely have to work on. I'm always the one who takes the picture. I don't ever want to be in the picture. I don't want to see pictures of myself. I don't like to listen to podcasts that I'm in. I don't want to watch videos that I'm in. I just don't.
Oh, I mean, that I don't understand at all because you sound fabulous and you look fabulous. Do you
So
think that
true.
men, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say, do you think that men, because I know men probably struggle with it too. I think men have a different type of, they go to the gym,
Yeah.
they have a different type of, that's again another episode. I keep going back to women and how much I feel and have empathy for those of us out there who we just seem to not be able to pull ourselves out of this. And it's not a woe is me, Karen. I don't feel like it's that. I don't think that people say self-deprecating things because they want compliments. I don't think that at all. I think that when we self-deprecate, we're really just admitting to each other, listen, I feel this way. And if you feel this way too, we have a meeting of the minds. You're not alone. I'm not alone.
Exactly. It's
Right?
yes. And I think people are really feeling that today, listening to us. They probably can see themselves in all of these different categories that we've talked about. And when they hear us saying, "Oh my gosh, I look in the mirror and I see myself and I think, who is that person?" I bet they can completely relate to that too, because every woman over 50 knows that feeling.
They do. And you might
Yeah.
sit there and have a chuckle and a laugh with somebody, but deep down inside, sometimes they go and they feel crappy about themselves, or
Yeah.
somebody says something
Yeah.
to them and it might
Sure.
hurt their feelings.
Sure.
And so but that's women. And I think that's the beauty of women too, though, is that we know each other. We see each other, we get each other. I don't understand women who are competitive with each other. I don't get it at all. I work in an environment with mostly women. I've always felt like we should be raising each other up and not competing with each other.
Right.
I've always had like a no mean girl type of mentality at work. Never tolerated it. Still don't tolerate it. There's no place for women to be competitive and mean with each other. And, you know,
Agreed.
so, but I think maybe I'm going to read off the rest of these because I know that
Okay.
we're probably getting, close
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then maybe we can break some of the other ones down more deeply at the next one. Just tell me kind of what you're thinking.
Okay.
Um, and again, these are just things I wrote down because I said to myself, I don't really know how to isolate the variables when I don't feel well. I don't know exactly what's wrong with me today. I said weather, stress, hormones, I think is a big, huge topic that we can talk
That's a
more about
massive one.
later.
Yes.
Okay, then, and I'm going to save, we talked about self-esteem briefly. Then there's anxiety, depression, there's viruses, there's diet, our GI system, our self-esteem, and life, just our sleep
Oh,
situations,
huge, huge.
our life scenarios. Do we have elderly parents we're taking care of? Are we on medications that could be affecting and causing mood swings that could be affecting each other? Then this is the big one, the physiology and genetics, like just what the heck is actually in our genetics that can be causing us sometimes to be the way we are.
Yeah. And
Um,
sometimes we might not know because it may
right.
go past the generation that we know. And
Yeah.
maybe we didn't know our grandparents or great grandparents. You know what I mean? Things could go
Yeah.
back further and we don't really know. So that is always to me, that's fascinating. Your
Well, and
genetics,
Pierre
your
found
makeup, your
some,
physiology.
yeah, absolutely. And Pierre found something online. I'll have to get the name of it, where you can actually, I guess you can swab the inside of your cheek and send it in and get a full report on what your genetics and physiology.
Right, you can. Yeah, like is that
So
like 23 and Me? Do they still exist? Because I know that they've had to change how they uh, purport themselves because of lawsuits and things, but I do think companies like that still exist,
what's
right?
the name of the company, Karen?
Like 23 and Me, that's one of them.
Okay.
And it's, your 23 chromosomes. And so they analyze them and they say, these are the things that you're at risk for, that kind
Okay.
of thing. And there's all
Okay.
kinds, ancestry is an ancestral
Yeah.
something. I don't know, I can't remember. Things like that. There's definitely companies like that, but I guess they're still around. I know
Oh, for
there were some
sure.
problems and they
I
had to
think
make
there's
some
actually
changes,
some
but
that I have, and I'll get this information for our next, when we
okay,
continue talking
cool.
about this.
I have you ever
Um,
done any of that?
no, never.
Me
I've never done
neither.
it. My mom and dad were not the type of people that went to doctors.
Okay.
I know my mom had neck issues. I know my dad had arthritic knees. They just sucked it up and went on with life. It was
Yeah.
so ironic that I married a doctor because my parents didn't believe in doctors. I think the only thing, I don't even know if I got vaccinated. I'm sure I did a couple
Oh
times,
my gosh, wow.
but yeah,
That's funny.
the factors, like the factors that are around now and causing so many kids to be sick and issues with our, with the COVID situation and the diets and so many young people being diagnosed with these chronic diseases, those things were just not around when I was younger. That is just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
amazing to me how so many things have evolved. And I don't know if the things have evolved or if our awareness has evolved, you know?
Interesting. Maybe
So,
both, maybe a little bit of both, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't like it doesn't have to be one thing, you know? When you're trying to figure out what's going on, there's so many factors, and it could be a multitude of them, and it usually is, you
right.
know? Yeah.
And I think if you go sit down and you talk to a doctor, they are going to do their darndest to rule out severe, you're going to get your full blood panel so that you can rule out, problems with your white blood cells. And, you're going to get flagged for something pretty serious for the most part, I hope anyway. But I know there's a lot of people who go to the doctor, they're not feeling well, and
And
they
they
move
don't get
along.
answers.
Right,
And they just
right.
get blown off. And that really is
Yeah.
frustrating to me.
Yeah.
If you have something like diabetes or maybe cancer, like the true diagnosis type of issues where you have a blood test and it's either yes or it's no,
Yeah.
those are the easier ones to diagnose for doctors. But when there's a gray area or when it's not in their expertise, which really is frustrating to me
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
way that our medical system is set up, if you have a heart problem, you go to a heart doctor. If you have a GI problem, you go to a GI doctor, right? There's nobody that's looking at all of you because some problems are actually more systemic and you need somebody looking at the full picture. It's
Full picture.
just the way that our medical system is set up, and it has so many failings. And don't get me started on the fact that we have to have all these problems to get any insurance to cover it because there's no preventive care in our country. So there's just so many issues that make it hard for us to get a proper diagnosis of what's going on with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a
I
rough
wish we could end.
time.
Can we say something positive? Can we end on a positive note?
Well, I think the positive thing was that when I landed in the ER, I was a lab rat for a cardiologist because I was admitted because of something going on with my heart. And I was a lab rat for a neurologist.
There you
And that
go.
was a turning point in my health journey. And so that was something positive because it led me to the direction that I needed to go. So something horrible had to happen to get me elevated to a point where I was able to figure out what was wrong with me and then get myself fixed. So I
Yeah.
that's a positive side of
Yeah.
that, I think. I
That
don't know if that's
happened
what
with
you meant.
me for sure. And that happens with my clients as well. I don't know. I don't know. I went to this doctor. I went to that doctor. Nobody knows. And then finally, there's that crisis moment where everything seems to then come together and they get that diagnosis. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of heartache to get to that place. But when you do, and I would imagine it was like this for you, it's almost a sigh of relief because you have been in the trenches and you have been so disheartened and just desperate for answers and for
Yeah.
so long. And when you
Yeah.
finally get that answer, even though it's something serious, now it's like, okay, now I have an answer. At least I now know there's a reason that I'm not crazy. There's a reason
Yes. Yeah.
why I'm going through this. And so after you go through all of that to get to the answer, I feel like that's huge. If you can come to that place where you get the answer,
Yeah.
huge, huge. Because
It
now
is
you can
huge.
start chipping away at it, and you can
Mhm.
realize, is there, a way that I can get rid of this completely? Is there a way I could minimize, even if
Mhm.
it's chronic, could I minimize the effects? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So when you have the diagnosis, you have a lot you can do with that after that point, I think.
I agree because otherwise you spend a lot of time saying, what the heck is wrong with me? Am I crazy? Oh,
Is
am I
there
taking
something wrong with
depression?
me? Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just know, Karen, I know that there's probably 1 in 3 women who feel that way. And
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? So
If
I
not
think if you
more.
have a friend that you can call and talk to about it, or, while you're waiting to get into the doctor, because that's another thing, you can't get into doctor's appointments too quickly anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you can get
No.
telehealth appointments, but you don't know what you're going to get. And I urge our listeners, if they're going through something, to call a friend. I think women are very understanding and helpful with each other.
Yep.
We may not always know what to say or how to help, but sometimes just like being able to share that with somebody other than your
Yes.
husband,
We just need somebody to talk to and
Hmm.
also to just keep fighting for those answers. I would say that as well. If
Yeah.
you don't get what the response that you're looking for from one doctor, go to another doctor. They're all
Right.
different. They all have different expertise and different ways that they see things. So just keep fighting, until you get the answers that you're looking for. Because I believe that there is
Yeah.
an answer out there. You just have to keep, pounding the
Oh,
pavement, keep looking for
right.
that answer.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Very well said, my dear.
You too. This is a really massive topic. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
I agree. As I said earlier, I feel like if I took a big poster board and made a Venn diagram with all my variables on it and had the interlapping ones and intertwined, it would just be a big mess. Probably similar to a chain link fence in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think what it is about this podcast though, and having somebody like you, your expertise and all the people that you help along the way with what they're dealing with. And I hope if there's any listeners out there who have any GI issues, if you have any questions at all, I think Karen is just like a wonderful, wonderful. Um,
You were so sweet. Do you know what I'm going to do? I think this would actually be a perfect episode for my audience. I'm going to put this on my podcast.
oh, really? Oh, I think that
Yeah,
would be wonderful. Yeah.
because this is a perfect cross promotional topic. Like this topic works for
It
anybody with
is.
health issues and GI
Yeah.
issues too. So, yeah, this is definitely going to be on the Cheeky podcast as well, for sure.
I love that. And I don't know if there's a woman out there who's listening and she's already been to all the doctors and all the health situations have rolled out, and there's maybe something else happening, you know, maybe this is where we can talk about hormones next and just the massive confusion around and all the controversy. And I do think hormones deserve another podcast, at
Oh,
least a part of
huge.
it, because
We could fit a whole podcast in. I mean, just if
I-
anybody listening could be a fly on the wall of that text chain that we had going, I got into the conversation late and there were
yeah,
already, I think, 50 some texts back and forth just when I got into it and it was still going after that. So much to talk about when it comes to hormones. We definitely have to
yeah,
dedicate an episode to it. And I think that it gets so much more complicated. You would think as you get older, it gets easier, but actually, I think it gets more complicated as you get older. And I
so much
really
more
would like to. I
complicated.
I don't know that we have the answers, but we have the questions, and so I would love to
Mhm.
bring that to our audience so that they can start, you
Mhm.
know, commiserating with us about it, asking those
Yeah,
questions themselves, all of that, like bringing people together around that topic. Because
yeah,
as we get older, the hormones do not go away; they
they
just
don't.
become different.
They don't. And it's funny that there are so many women who are younger than me that are texting about this now because, again, this is 5, 6 years ago. I was looking for these answers, and I
Mm.
feel like, yes, there's a lot more information. Yes, there's a lot more women talking about it, but yes, it's still super confusing.
It is. It is.
So,
And it's one of those things that your doctor sometimes
yeah.
doesn't even help you with. So we have to definitely find an episode to talk about that as well,
Yeah, I
for
want to
sure.
talk about that for sure. And not from an I am by no means an expert,
Oh
and
no,
I
for
would
sure.
not be coming to it in an expert kind of way. I'd be coming from it to it, and this has been my experience. I
Totally.
hope that listeners out there, can relate and maybe share some of their experiences as well with it.
Yeah.
So,
But if we can find
uh,
an expert to talk about it, we will bring that person on.
yeah.
Yeah, because we could really use, all of us could use somebody who is there to tell us, well, this is what's going on and this is what's going on.
I will tell you that I was listening to a podcast recently, and I will listen to it again. And if you want me to, she sounded like a fabulous person. She's a physical therapist, and she said that she was seeing while she was doing work with her patients. She just found like she was able to help them physically, but there were so many more things going on with their hormones. And she
Mm.
said the one thing that was in common with all of them was that they were in that menopause phase.
Uh-huh.
And I think she has a website, and she has people. messaging her and things like that. I'll have to get her name. And when we
Yeah.
talk about hormones, I'll have to put it on. She seemed like she was a nice lady.
Yeah.
Again, no, not all the answers because it's just overwhelming, but
Yeah.
every
Nobody
little
has
bit
probably
helps.
has all the answers, but we definitely have the questions and we can get that, yeah, get that conversation going for sure.
Yes,
This is
yes.
so, this was really, I think this is going to be now one of my favorite episodes. This was really good. I love this. I love this conversation. I could talk about it endlessly. So many different directions we could go in. I love
I
it.
know. We definitely have to finish talking about the rest of the variables that I was thinking about, and I do want to break them down a little bit more. So you let me know if next time you want to continue talking about this, or if something
Okay.
else comes up that you think would be good, or listeners, if there's anything you could think of that you want to add and
Yep.
ask us to talk about.
Yeah. Shoot us an
Yeah,
email,
yeah.
pamkarenpod@gmail.com, pamkarenpod@gmail.com. And remember, my
Or
mom had to be a little different and spell my name with a Y. So it's Karyn. And we're also on YouTube now. So you could just leave us a comment. If you're watching
I
this on
was going to
YouTube,
say
leave us a comment below.
it would be really fun to read comments. I would love to read some of your comments
Yeah.
because I think that that would make it really fun too. And yeah, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and thank you for being a part of our community.
Yep. Thanks for hanging out
Um,
with us. And of course, my dear partner in crime. Thank you, Pam. Love you.
Thank you, Karen. Love you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.